A Suffolk woman is behind bars tonight facing some pretty disturbing charges. She's charged with not just abusing animals, but also having sex with them. This is 42-year-old Christina Patterson, who now faces 6 counts of crimes against nature, things like bestiality, carnally knowing an animal, and 6 counts of animal cruelty.
Mrs. Patterson is ready to defend herself in court if necessary, but at this stage she has not been indicted or charged with any crime.
That's what Christina Patterson's lawyer at the time told us months ago, but that's all changed. In July of 2017, Suffolk police executed a search warrant at a home Patterson shared with her husband, Richard. A host of law enforcement agencies were there and seized computers and videos of the couple engaged in sex acts of bestiality. Andrew Sachs is Richard Patterson's lawyer.
The conduct of 2 consenting adults in the United States of America in the privacy of their bedroom with respect to their sexual activities is nobody's business.
Sachs' recent argument to 13 News Now will be tested in court. Richard Patterson's currently behind bars facing gun charges, and we're told any additional charges for sex with animals would move forward after that matter is dealt with. As for the search warrant used to go through the couple's home and collect the animal videos, Andrew Sachs told us recently he has questions about whether it was an overreach.